Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today is exciting. For those of you who are aware, there is a series over in Japan called Super GT. Super GT is a multi-class racing series that takes place in Japan, in which at the current moment has GT3 and GT1 style cars. So that's what I'll call them for now. They're called GT500s, which they are very high horsepower inline four turbo cars, as you are looking at right now. Lots of downforce, very fast cars, very similar to the GT1s from back in the day, speed-wise. Now, the GT3 class is basically your LMGT3 style car. It's all the same manufacturers that race in the other GT3 series, plus a couple extra privateer shops running like a BRZ GT3 and some other GT3s in there that aren't in your normal manufacturer list. Now, I figured we would do a fun thing today and drive all of the Toyota Supra GT500s that are available for Assetto Corsa. I feel like it's going to be a lot of fun to time travel through history, drive the different cars, see how different they react. So I say, let's not waste any time. Let's just jump right into this thing, starting with the Castrol number 37 Toyota Supra. All right, so our first car of the day is the 1996 Tom's Castrol Supra, and this car came with a 2JZ. It was twin turboed with a 3.0 liter displacement, so that is an inline six engine, very famous, the 2JZ GTE. It had about 690 brake horsepower, very fast, 512 kilowatts for you Kiwis over there, and the torque was 677 foot-pounds. That is a lot, man. And of course, a 6-speed manual gearbox. So I said 6-speed manual, but I believe it was a 6-speed sequential gearbox. I don't think these had H shifters back in the day. So obviously I don't have a sequential gearbox with me here, so I'm gonna have to get creative with my paddles, which is totally fine. But here is the car, very lovely, gonna be a lot of fun to drive this thing. Let's get out on track. All right, so here's the inside of this thing. Very nice model made here. I will provide a link in the description for where I got this from, if I can find it. They were downloaded quite a while ago. This is a very snappy car when it comes to its handling, so the physics could be a little improved, but again, this isn't iRacing or anything like that, so you kind of have to drive it with the nose, if you will. I think that's the best way to explain it, but yeah, it should be a lot of fun to rip around Suzuka here. So this is our first model of the three that we're going to go over for today. So 1996, let's see what was going on in 1996. I wasn't born yet, in fact, so wasn't around, and there were lots of lovely sports cars being released during that time. That was the height of the Japanese sports cars, not like it is today, of course. Here you go, you can enjoy the sound. What a sound that is, man. That is a beautiful sound. I'm gonna kind of coast into T1 here and try and use the nose a little bit to get this thing to turn. Don't want to scrub the tires too much with this. It's pretty understeery, I've noticed, like right off the bat. It kind of wants to really have that initial bite at front, and I wonder if that has something to do with the setup. I did notice that the front had -40 toe on it, so maybe we could adjust that, and that might help fix things a little bit, because this is very pointy. And so actually, now that I say that, I think I'm going to go into the setup and just abandon this lap, and I'm gonna set the toe to 0 for both parameters there, because I don't know why there would be such a difference between the two. It definitely feels like that, that's for sure. All right, little bit of an adjustment. I just decided to go even on the front and the rear. I've decided with -10. I have a feeling that's gonna make this feel a lot better, and it most certainly does. It feels much more stable now, not as willing to kind of throw itself off the track. So now we can get a proper adjustment for what this car feels like. So yeah, I am expecting kind of a very vintage style race car from this. That's kind of my like initial impression. I don't feel like this thing is going to be too modern feeling. I've obviously driven the other GT500 for the intro, and I can tell you that is wildly different from this. Those cars are so fast nowadays, it really is something else. So I kind of just expect this to be in the middle, kind of a vintage race car, but modern enough to where it still feels in control. As we know, those vintage race cars are like driving on a knife edge pretty much all the time. So this, I don't really feel like that, but it is definitely slower. Which brings us to our point, which is this kind of feels like iRacing has the GT1 Aston Martin from the early 2000s, and this really feels like that to me. It's kind of similar style car, maybe even a little slower, to be honest. That car's a little more planted in iRacing. Again, this is worth mentioning for the video. My unfortunate Thrustmaster that I've had for years now, I've had this for so long, has decided to break and now only caps out at 75% force feedback strength. So unfortunately, I can't get the full effect with my wheel of the force feedback I'm looking for, but we're going to upgrade that soon here. So these are kind of my last weeks with the Thrustmaster wheel, which is why you actually didn't see anything uploaded on this channel for a while. So the videos will be coming back once I get this wheel replaced, but I don't really enjoy using iRacing on 70% force feedback. So let's go for a lap here. Let's actually try and drive this thing. I have no idea where the rev limiter is. I'm kind of just riding it off the limiter like crazy. Very understeery a little bit. I'm going to hold third gear here. Make sure we use the curbs and try and get on the inside. I'm just going to keep it third gear through this whole section and just like dab the brakes a little bit to get that nose. It sounded Canadian there. To get that nose pointed in. I have kind of a suspicion that that's really how you drive this car, is you use that brake pedal, that first like 10-15% to really pitch that nose down and get some front grip in the car. I'm not even going to downshift here. Maybe I could have. The engine braking probably would have helped me a little bit. The car feels a little slow, to be honest with you. I was expecting it to be faster, but maybe that's just because I've driven the other GT500 so much. So really heavy on the brakes here. First gear to get this thing to rotate. That short shifting with the engine braking there, that's really going to take those rear wheels and help slow the car down, and that resistance in those lower gears is what's going to help rotate that rear end. So you definitely want to use the engine braking in a car like this, especially those older cars. They really tend to like that. Probably shouldn't have downshifted to second gear there. I feel like I could have gotten away with third rolling it through there. I have a feeling around 8,000 RPM is where our sweet spot for shifting is, but I've been talking this whole time, so I haven't really been paying attention all that much to the engine noise. I have it turned way down in my headset so that I can hear myself talk. Go really heavy on the brakes here. Clip that first curb. Try not to scrub the tires too much here. And we'll take a close line to the finish here, which should give us a lap time. So a 2:01.6. So around the same pace as a GT3. I think a GT3 can get into the 159s around here. We'll see if we can beat that time for one more lap here before we switch to our next car. I'm really going to hustle this thing now and try and see if we can reach our limit here. So again, I'm just trying to be very gentle with the steering, just trying to feel where that grip is, where the nose is biting, where the downforce is starting to act, even though there really isn't much downforce with this car to begin with. You just have a rear wing in the back and then maybe some sort of a front splitter. So again, we're in a right-hand drive car, so we want to use all that right-hand exit there. A little hard for an American like me to gauge that because we are of course left-hand drive over here. Accelerating at about halfway through the corner there. We're going to do the same thing here, but we got to get this braking zone right just at the end of this curb. Heavy on the brakes. That was too early of a downshift there to first gear, but we'll work with it. Car is a little snappy right now. I feel like these soft tires are wearing faster than expected. Suzuka, great track. Love driving around here. Have done many laps, but let's focus back up again. Let's see. Probably roll it through third here this time. Again, use that brake pedal just to pitch that nose down. It's a little understeery. Didn't really want to go through all the way. but it definitely feels better with the toe adjustment. The negative 40 toe in the front was far too much. It was kind of wanted to just throw the car around all over the place. This isn't quite flat. You kind of have to go like 5% braking around there just to get the front to pitch down a bit. Oh, huge lock up there. Yep, that is going to ruin that lap. So unfortunately, we don't get that done. Let's jump to our next car. All right, so our next competitor. This is a 2005 Supra GT500. So this is a Volk livery, if I'm not mistaken. And so this one came with the Toyota 3UZ FE. So that's a 4.3 liter V8 dual overhead cam, and it had 473 brake horsepower. So I believe that's about half of the other one, right? Didn't the other one have almost 700 or something like that? So I could be totally wrong there. I don't remember what that number said when I was reading it, but 473 brake horsepower. So completely different engine configuration here with the V8. And it weighs about 2,400 pounds, or if you are overseas, 1,090 kilograms. So this is a really, really high quality mod. It's really, really well made. So I'm looking forward to driving this one here. So we'll take this thing around the circuit. Let's get my cursor off the screen there. That doesn't need to be there. There we go. All right, so V8. It definitely doesn't sound like a V8, but for sure it is one. The one thing about this car right away, that roll bar makes it very hard to see the right hand of the circuit. So we're gonna have to do some guesswork. I believe that's about as far we can go to the right there. So the force feedback much better in this car than the other one. I really like the way this car drives, man. I think that's my initial thoughts. Is it flat out? I don't know if I have the balls to do it, but I think it might just be flat out. You can really get down the gears much quicker there, although I overshot that first apex a little bit. I think we're well under the 2-minute mark there, so we've got a 1:59.9, even though I was trolling. So I think I could get that to like a 1:57.9 if I sat here for hours and hours hot lapping that. I think I could, honestly. I might be able to go a second quicker here now that I say that. That's kind of a little bit of a lie, so let's push a little bit and see what we can get. I think we can get ourselves to a 57.9 here on this lap if I drive nicely. Little bump over the curb, just dab the brakes in again. Try and hold this flat out here. You want a little bit of a lift there, but then you want to just get all of this flat as much as you can. So I'm going to use 4th gear at this corner right here, right at the 50. Use 4th. That sets us up a little better. The brakes will rotate us. I'm using the iRacing track limits, which is the edge of the curb. Tried to hold 2nd gear a little longer there so I could carry a little bit more speed into the corner. I've just noticed that this car responds to inputs much better. That's my favorite thing about it. It just feels more alive. The other car felt dead almost. That is the best way to explain it. We'll go 4th gear through here, and then 3rd to rotate it through. Just try and find that front grip. This is already a much cleaner lap. Tires are a little warmer. There's a little more grip out there. Track is a little more rubbered in. Just feels a little better to drive. A little more alive is the word that I will use. So I'm happy with this lap. I tried taking it flat. I had to lift a little bit. I couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. So got to go down 4 gears. We should be getting through that nice and smoothly now, which we do. And again, hug this right side. You can save a 1/10 or so by doing that. And there we go. So a 58.6 for that one. That was a fun car to drive. I really enjoyed that one. I do have to say, that one, if I had a direct drive wheel, I think I would like this one the most out of all of them. So there we go. There was the 2005 GT500 Supra. When I think of Gran Turismo, I just think of these cars. And granted, I didn't play GT all that much growing up, but I definitely played it when I was a kid, and that's how I was kind of introduced to a lot of circuit motorsport, because I was obviously born in the US. So all I was ever introduced to growing up was oval racing. That's what most Americans knew in the early 2000s. But of course, Gran Turismo and all other racing games of that fashion introduced me as a young kid that there's this whole other world out there. And so these cars, the Super GT cars especially, kind of hold a near and dear place in my heart, because those were those first like iconic circuit racing cars that I once discovered when I was playing Gran Turismo on the PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 3. So yeah, I have very fond memories with all of these cars, but we've got one more to go over, which is the modern day GT500. We're going to drive the Wed Sport A90 Supra, so that should be a lot of fun. So let's hop into that one and let's see the comparison between all three of them. All right, so here we go. This is the 2021 A90 Supra GT500 of Super GT, the Wed Sport. Beautiful car. What an absolutely stunning car. Now, this was kind of interesting. I decided to read up on this a little bit. So this obviously has a 4-cylinder turbocharged engine, but it is the Toyota RI engine. Is that an I or an L? I think it is the RI engine. And so this is actually in a lot of motorsport vehicles, which is why I wanted to read up in it. So it is the RI engine. So it's the RI4A engine. So that is what is in the GT500. And what's really cool about this is it's actually in a lot of other cars as well. So it's in the Dallara SF14, the Dallara SF19, the Dallara SF23, which are super formula cars, if you don't know what that is. And then it's also in the Lexus RCF GT500, the Lexus LC500 GT500, and of course the car that we're driving right now. So yeah, it's an inline 4. I don't see any power numbers. Oh, here we go. So it makes about anywhere between 540 to 670 horsepower. So I'm not sure to what they have it tuned for Super GT, so I'm not going to spew out a number acting like I know what I'm talking about, but those are the numbers that they have here in this document, which is 670 horsepower at its peak. So pretty quick. I don't know if that's what they're running for Super GT, but definitely you're going to see the difference in pace in this car compared to the other ones, because this car, much more planted. All right, nice little burnout exiting the pits there. You're going to see right away this car is way more planted than the other ones. It is like rapidly fast. So I don't know how fast I'm going to be able to go with this thing, but we are definitely going to surpass that 150, whatever we did, a 158. I think that was in the previous version. So I think we're almost going to go 10 seconds quicker. I will go as far to say that. Here, let's go again. All right, well, this is proving to be the most difficult out of all of them for me for some reason. Partially, as a racing driver would, I'm going to use some excuses, and I'm going to say that the lack of force feedback is making this much more difficult than it needs to be. I can't really feel what the car is doing at all because my steering wheel is so light, but I also am just sucking at driving right now. So that is definitely another little thing to consider there, but this is really, really difficult to get right. It seems like there's just this narrow little window that the car wants to be at, and as soon as you get outside of that window, it doesn't really respond all that well. There we go. That was much better. That was what I was trying to do originally before I was spinning. So a little deep in there. I think I actually locked up. I just can't hear it because I got the sound turned down a little bit. That would explain why I've not been making any of these corners. So that is an oversight by me. Let's try and take a little more entry speed here. That's when I wanted to downshift last time. So again, that's a very hard corner to get through because it's off camber. So the car kind of just like slides out towards that exit curb, and it doesn't really want to hug back inside towards that that inside curb on the left. This is just easy flat out. No need to lift here. Let's brake a little bit earlier this time. Still overshot it. That is funny. but it's going to be a much better lap than the other two cars. It's going to be much quicker, down into the 43s. So I think I've got a 41 in me, or a 40 potentially, but we're not sitting here hot lapping trying to be Superman or something like that. So that is going to do it for this video. Out of all of the cars that I drove today, I think I've got to say the 2005 one is my favorite. Now, I will say it is really important to note that the force feedback is going to sway my opinion a little bit here. I'm sure if I had a direct drive wheel, we would have a different outcome of which car is my favorite. But unfortunately, this guy is holding on for dear life, and I'm going to use it until it completely stops working. So it's done its service, though. Unfortunately, this T300 has reached the end of its lifespan. But yeah, I don't know. That was just a ton of fun. It was really interesting to see the different history between the cars, how each one drives. Granted, these are just Assetto Corsa mods, right? So it's not entirely 100% accurate, but it's enough of a glimpse to kind of almost be in a time capsule, if you will. And that's why I love driving on Assetto Corsa from time to time, is because there's so many mods out there and so many pieces of history that you can drive that, like, you can literally just download it and load it up in 2 minutes. I mean, what is better than that, right? There's no paywall for anything. You can just download it, throw it in, and you can race whatever track car combo you want. So yeah, that is going to do it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed this little sight into Super GT history. If you haven't, please be sure to check out the series. I know it's a little hard to watch the races because of the time zone difference, but I promise you they are really, really exciting. It's an awesome racing series. If I'm ever awake at the time, I always make sure to try and catch them. But that's going to do it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. That's about it.